If you want to build a team that wins, you have to stop choosing comfort over clarity. It's tempting, especially in leadership, to soften the message, to pull punches, to sugarcoat your expectations because you're worried about how someone might feel. But comfort doesn't build strong teams, clarity does. Forming teams don't need vague encouragement. They need direction. They need truth. They need you to say what you actually mean. Because here's the thing, when leaders prioritize comfort, they unintentionally create confusion. And confusion is the fastest way to kill performance. People can't execute at a high level if they don't know what winning looks like. They can't grow if they don't know where they're falling short. And they certainly can't improve if no one has the courage to tell them the truth. You're not doing your team any favors by avoiding hard conversations. In fact, you're holding them back, you're keeping them small. You're choosing your own discomfort over their opportunity to improve. That's not leadership, that's self-preservation. Clarity is leadership. It means telling the truth even when it's uncomfortable. It means setting expectations so clearly that no one is confused about what success looks like. It means giving feedback in real time instead of holding it in and letting resentment grow. It means being consistent, fair, and honest because your team deserves to know where they stand. Let me be clear, clarity is not cruelty, it's not harsh, it's not cold, it's not mean. Clarity is a gift, it's respectful, it's empowering. It tells someone, I believe in you enough to tell you the truth. Brave teams are built on that kind of honesty. It starts with how you communicate. Do your team members know exactly what's expected of them in their role? Do they know what success looks like on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis? Can they articulate what good is in your organization? Because if they can't, that's not on them, that's on you. Vague direction leads to vague results. And when someone isn't meeting expectations, do you tell them immediately, or do you hope they'll figure it out on their own? Most leaders wait too long. They assume people will just get it. But people don't get it unless you say it out loud, directly. Here's what happens when you don't say it. You get frustrated. They stay confused. And before you know it, you've created a culture where underperformance is tolerated because no one knows how to name it. You can't coach what you won't confront, and you can't fix what you won't name. The goal isn't to be liked. The goal is to be respected. And respect comes from consistency, honesty, and clarity. It comes from setting a high bar and holding people to it not just once, but every single day. If you've got someone on your team who's not delivering, and you haven't told them directly, then you're the problem, because you're allowing it. Comfort-based leadership says it'll get better on its own. Clarity-based leadership says, let's talk about it now. When you lead with clarity, you speed up results. People stop guessing. They stop wasting energy trying to decode what you meant. Instead, they get to work aligned, focused, and empowered, and they trust you more. Because they know where they stand. They know the rules, and they know you won't surprise them with something that's been building in silence. Clarity is also about consistency. You can't expect people to trust your leadership if your expectations change every week. Teams crave stability. They want to know what matters most and how it will be measured. If you're not providing that, they'll make up their own version, and that's where things fall apart. This is especially true when you're scaling. The bigger your team, the more essential clarity becomes. In small teams, miscommunication can be fixed quickly, but in larger organizations, lack of clarity becomes systemic. It shows up in missed goals, low engagement, and high turnover. You can't afford to be vague, not if you want to grow. Clarity also builds confidence. When people know what's expected of them, and they have the tools to meet those expectations, they start to perform differently. They take ownership, they move faster, they trust themselves. That kind of confidence doesn't come from motivational speeches. It comes from being told the truth and being supported to rise to it. So ask yourself, where are you avoiding clarity? Where are you softening your message? Where are you prioritizing your comfort over your team's growth? Brave teams are built when leaders get real, when they stop hiding behind politeness and start leading with purpose. When they say the thing that needs to be said, in the moment it needs to be said, because the truth, spoken with respect, is never harsh, it's helpful, it's leadership, and it's the foundation of every hyper-forming team. So choose clarity every time, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. That's how brave teams are built. Accountability isn't punishment, it's not micromanagement, and it's not something that only shows up when things go wrong. Accountability is love. It's how hyper-forming teams show that they care not just about the result, but about each other. When you hold someone accountable, what you're really saying is, you matter, your work matters, and I believe you're capable of more. That's not criticism, that's belief in action. The most elite teams don't resent accountability, they expect it, they crave it, because accountability means everyone is playing at the highest level. There's no confusion about who owns what, no gray areas, no excuses, just clarity, consistency, and mutual respect. Now, let's be real, holding people accountable is uncomfortable, especially when it's someone you like. Especially when you're tired, especially when the easier thing would be to say, it's fine, I'll fix it later. But every time you do that, every time you let something slide, you chip away at the culture you're trying to build. You trade long-term excellence for short-term comfort, and that's a bad deal. Accountability requires courage. It means telling the truth when it would be easier to stay quiet. It means following up, following through, and staying consistent not when it's convenient, but when it's necessary. You cannot build a hyper-forming team without accountability. It's not optional, it's the cost of excellence, and the good news is, when it's built into your culture, it stops feeling like confrontation and starts feeling like collaboration. People want to know where they stand, they want to know what's expected, they want feedback even if it's uncomfortable, because feedback is what helps them grow. When you avoid accountability, you're not being kind, you're being unclear. And unclear leadership always leads to underperformance. Let's take this deeper. Think about the best leaders you've worked with, the ones who pushed you, challenged you, called you out when you weren't giving your best. Those are the leaders you remember, not because they made you feel good, but because they made you better. They didn't let you slide. They didn't protect your feelings at the cost of your potential. They held the bar high, and they didn't apologize for it. That's what love looks like in a high-performance environment. It's not coddling, it's not rescuing, it's holding people to a standard because you believe they can rise to it. In brave teams, accountability is everywhere. It's not just top down, it's lateral. Teammates call each other out not out of ego, but out of commitment to the goal. It's not personal, it's professional. You said you'd have it done. This isn't the standard we agreed on. That's not how we show up here. This is what creates trust, not pretending things are fine when they're not, but telling the truth in service of the mission. If you want that kind of culture, it starts with you. Are you accountable to what you say? Do you follow through on what you commit to? Do you hold yourself to the same standards you expect from others because your team is watching? And nothing undermines accountability faster than a leader who makes exceptions for themselves. You can't preach ownership if you don't live it. If you miss deadlines, if you avoid feedback, if you blame circumstances, your team will do the same. But if you're consistent, if you admit when you're wrong, if you show what accountability looks like in action, your team will follow. Also, accountability doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't mean you're angry. It doesn't require a long meeting. Sometimes it's just a sentence. This isn't what we agreed on. Let's fix it now. This needs to be better next time. That's it. Simple, clear, direct, and when people meet the standard, you celebrate, not just because they performed, but because they took ownership. You reinforce that accountability leads to results and results get recognized. That's how you build momentum. That's how you build culture. Now, here's the hard truth. Some people will resist accountability. They'll push back. They'll make excuses. They'll say you're being too harsh. That's okay. Let them go, because accountability reveals character, and if someone can't handle being held to a standard, they don't belong on a team that's chasing greatness. You don't lower the bar to keep people comfortable. You raise the standard and find the people willing to rise with it. That's how you build a team that wins. At the end of the day, accountability is how we show we care. We care enough to tell the truth. We care enough to follow through. We care enough to challenge people to be better than they were yesterday. That's not just love, that's leadership. So stop avoiding it. Stop softening it. Start practicing it. Start honoring it. Start building a team that sees accountability not as a burden, but as a badge of trust. Because the teams that love each other enough to hold each other accountable, those are the teams that win. Feedback isn't a formality. It's not something you check off a list once a year in a performance review. Feedback is fuel. It's what keeps your team sharp, focused, and moving forward. And without it, everything slows down: results, growth, trust. You cannot lead effectively without it, and you cannot grow a team that wins if you're not giving it constantly. The best teams don't just tolerate feedback, they run on it, they crave it, because they understand one thing: you can't improve what you don't see. Feedback is how you make the invisible visible. It's how people learn what's working, what's not, and what they need to do next. It's not criticism, it's clarity, and clarity is how you grow. Now, if the word feedback makes your team nervous, that's a culture issue. And it starts at the top. Most teams fear feedback because it's inconsistent, unclear, or comes too late. It's used as a reaction to failure instead of a tool for development. That creates anxiety. People start associating feedback with being in trouble instead of seeing it as an opportunity to level up. You have to flip that. Feedback has to be part of your rhythm. It's not a moment, it's a mindset. It should be happening in real time all the time, not just in one-on-ones or performance reviews, but in meetings on the floor in the day-to-day, and not just when something goes wrong, but when something goes right. Because reinforcing great performance is just as important as correcting poor performance. Think about it. When someone delivers excellent work, do you tell them why it was excellent? Do you break it down and explain what made it great so they can repeat it? Or do you just say, "Good job," and move on? Because good job isn't feedback, it's vague, it's lazy, and it doesn't teach anything. Real feedback is specific. It names the behavior, connects it to the outcome, and reinforces what needs to continue or change. The way you opened that client meeting, direct, confident, focused, that's what set the tone. Keep doing that. That's feedback, that's fuel. It tells someone exactly what to replicate and why it matters. And the same goes for correcting. If something's off, you have to say it quickly, directly, respectfully, not with frustration, not with shame, but with clarity. This deliverable didn't meet the expectation because it lacked data to support. Let's go back and tighten it up. Simple. Clear, immediate. The longer you wait to give feedback, the more costly the mistake becomes. Time passes, emotions build, details get fuzzy, and by the time you say something, it's a whole situation. That's not feedback, that's a backlog of resentment. Great leaders don't let things build up. They address it in the moment, not because they're being critical, but because they care. Feedback is a form of care. If you see someone drifting and you don't say anything, that's not kindness, that's neglect. You want to build a brave team, normalize feedback, make it safe, make it constant, make it actionable. Because if your team can't talk about what's not working, they will never unlock what could be possible. And remember, feedback is a two-way street. If you expect your team to receive it well, you have to model how to receive it yourself. That means inviting it, not just accepting it, asking for it, craving it, because you're not above feedback. No one is. You're not too senior, too experienced, or too successful to be better. The minute you stop wanting feedback is the minute you stop growing. You set the tone. If you get defensive when your team gives you input, they won't bring things up again. But if you receive it with openness, thank them for their honesty, and act on it even if it stings, they'll trust you more. They'll speak up, they'll grow alongside you, and that's what performance looks like, everyone growing together. Also, not all feedback is equal. Teach your team how to give it. Train them to be specific, constructive, and focused on outcomes. Random complaints or vague feelings don't help. Productive feedback comes from observation, data, and shared goals, and when someone gives feedback well, recognize it, reinforce it. That's how you create a loop of continuous improvement. Feedback should never feel like a surprise, it should never feel like an attack, and it should never be saved for some later moment. Later is too late. Real leaders give it now with respect, with clarity, and with the intent to build, not break. That's what feedback does. It builds people, it builds trust, it builds culture, it fuels momentum. So if you want a team that performs at the highest level, stop tiptoeing around the truth, stop saving it. Start saying it, because the fastest way to accelerate your team's performance isn't a tool or a strategy, it's feedback. Direct, respectful, consistent feedback. That's your fuel, use it. Speed without alignment is chaos. If your team is moving fast but in different directions, you're not making progress, you're just creating noise. Activity is not the same as impact, and if you want real results, you need alignment before action. Too many teams jump into execution mode without pausing to ask the most important question. Are we clear on where we're going and why it matters? Without alignment, even the most talented team will underdeliver. Not because they're not working hard, but because they're not working together. Alignment is the foundation of effective execution. It's what turns individual contributors into a unified team. It's what ensures that time, energy, and resources are being used to drive the right outcomes, not just any outcome. You can have the best strategies, the most brilliant people, the flashiest systems, and still fail if you're not aligned on purpose, priorities, and expectations. This is your job as a leader, to slow down the start so you can speed up the finish. Alignment isn't a delay, it's a multiplier. When everyone is rowing in the same direction at the same pace with the same goal in mind, you can move 10 times faster. But if you skip this step, get ready to redo work, clean up confusion, and manage unnecessary drama. Clarity drives alignment. If your team doesn't know what the mission is, what their role is in achieving it, and how success will be measured, that's not their fault, it's yours. Vague vision statements and scattered goals don't inspire excellence. They create friction, hesitation, and inconsistency. People can't act decisively when they're unclear. They second, guess, overthink, and stall. When your team is aligned, they don't need to be micromanaged. They can own their responsibilities because they understand the bigger picture. They know how their work connects to the team's success. They know what good looks like. They know what decisions they can make without you, and they make them confidently. Alignment isn't just about agreement, it's about understanding. Your team doesn't need to agree with every decision, but they do need to understand it. They need to know why we're doing what we're doing and why now, and that's on you to communicate. You cannot assume alignment. You have to create it, proactively, consistently, over and over again. Every new goal, every new project, every new team member alignment has to be reestablished. This is not a one and done leadership move, it's a rhythm, a discipline. Ask yourself, are your goals written down? Are they shared? Are they tracked publicly? Can every person on your team explain what the top priorities are this week? This month, this quarter? If the answer is no, stop. Don't push forward. Get aligned first. And alignment doesn't just happen in a kickoff meeting. It happens in your one-on-ones. It happens in your daily huddles. It happens in your weekly check-ins. It's not a PowerPoint slide, it's a conversation. It's a habit. You also need to check for alignment early and often. Don't wait until something breaks to realize your team misunderstood the assignment. Don't assume they got it just because they nodded in the meeting. Ask them to repeat it back. Ask what success looks like to them. Look for gaps. Fix them immediately, because small misalignments become big problems fast. Alignment creates confidence. When people are aligned, they're not stuck in decision paralysis. They're not worried about whether they're doing the right thing. They're focused, they're clear, and they're moving with intention. That confidence leads to speed, it leads to ownership, it leads to results, and let's be honest, alignment isn't always exciting. It's not flashy, it's not glamorous, but it's what separates average teams from excellent ones. The best teams don't move the fastest out of the gate, they move the most intentionally. They make sure everyone is clear before they act, and that's why they win. If your team is stuck or scattered or spinning in circles, don't throw another task on their plate. Don't schedule another meeting for the sake of motion. Pause, realign, ask, what are we trying to achieve? Who's owning what? What's the timeline? What's the standard? What's the consequence for missing it? When people know those answers, execution becomes inevitable, and don't mistake silence for alignment. Just because no one is speaking up doesn't mean they're on the same page. You have to create a space where people feel safe enough to say, I don't get it, or this doesn't make sense, or I see it differently. That's how real alignment is built, through trust, honesty, and courageous conversations. Alignment before action is not a luxury, it's a requirement for performance, for culture. For clarity, because when you skip alignment, you don't just lose time, you lose trust, and rebuilding that takes way more energy than getting aligned in the first place. So before you send the next email, launch the next project, assign the next task, pause. Get aligned, make sure everyone understands the mission and their role in it, then act together, fast and with purpose. That's how you move from busy to bold. That's how brave teams operate. Let me know if you want to proceed with the final piece. Growth is a team sport. Growth is not a solo pursuit. It's not about the hero employee or the rock star leader carrying all the weight. That's not sustainable. That's not scalable. That's not how winning teams operate. Growth is a team sport. Every person in every role owns a piece of it, and if they don't, that's where your momentum dies. The teams that grow together win together. They understand that growth is a shared responsibility, not something reserved for leadership or high performers. Everyone's job is growth, growing the business, growing their skills, growing the people around them. It's not optional, it's the standard, and here's the truth. You can't grow a business if your people aren't growing. You can set big revenue goals, talk about scaling, invest in strategy, but if your team isn't expanding their capacity, their mindset, and their ownership, you'll stall. Your business will always be limited by the growth of your people. That's why you can't build a culture that tolerates stagnation. You can't afford to have people who are content with staying exactly where they are. Not because that's wrong, but because that mindset doesn't serve a high-performance team. You want people who are hungry, curious, willing to stretch, but here's the key. Growth isn't just personal, it's collective. It's not just I'm learning more or I'm getting better. It's how am I helping the team level up? That's what makes it a team sport. The best teams are full of people who challenge each other, support each other, and raise the standard for one another. That means growth conversations can't just happen in annual reviews. They have to be constant. What are you learning? Where are you struggling? What's the next level of contribution for you? These aren't bonus questions, they're leadership essentials. You have to be the leader who expects growth and supports it. That means giving feedback early, investing in development, creating opportunities for people to step up, not just when they're ready, but when they need to stretch. Growth doesn't happen in comfort zones. And if no one's uncomfortable, no one's growing, and when someone is growing, you call it out, you make it visible, you show the team that growth is noticed, celebrated, and expected. That's how you build momentum. That's how you reinforce culture. Growth becomes the norm, not the exception. Also, make no mistake, growth includes growing through mistakes. If your team is afraid of failing, they will avoid risk. And when people avoid risk, they stay small. You don't grow when you only do what you already know. You grow when you take a shot, fall short, and learn faster than anyone else. But they won't do that unless you create a culture where failure is a step forward, not a dead end. You set the tone for that. Are you sharing what you're working on, what you're learning, where you've messed up and adjusted? Because if you only show up polished and perfect, your team will think that's what's expected. And they'll play it safe. Growth can't live in a culture of perfectionism. It needs honesty, it needs grit, it needs space to evolve, and don't confuse busyness with growth. Just because someone is clocked in and cranking out tasks doesn't mean they're growing. Growth means improvement. It means better thinking, better habits, better decisions. If someone's been in the same role for 3 years and they're doing it the same way they did in year one, that's not loyalty. That's lost opportunity. Forming teams ask, what can we do better? Every single week, and they don't wait for a manager to tell them. They take initiative, they bring ideas, they push each other. That's what it means to be on a team that's committed to growth. Now, let's be clear, not everyone wants that. Some people just want to do their job and go home. That's fine, but they don't belong on a growth team. Because growth requires energy, it requires change, it requires accountability, and if someone resists that, they'll drag your culture down no matter how skilled they are. So protect your culture, hire for growth mindset. Reward initiative, create an environment where learning is constant, mistakes are okay, and progress is mandatory, and never forget the goal isn't just to grow the business, the goal is to grow people. Because people drive the business, when your team grows, the business follows. When your team levels up, performance follows. When your team wins together, everyone wins bigger. Growth is not a department. It's not a task, it's not an individual goal, it's a team commitment. It's what you build your culture around, and when you do that, growth stops being something you chase and starts being something you create.